The rain had been falling since sundown, and Nathan Brooks was done with the day. He pulled the shop door shut behind him, jacket collar up against the cold, hands still dark with motor oil he'd never quite scrubbed clean. 3 steps from his truck. That was all he managed before she slammed into him. She came out of nowhere. Expensive blazer torn at the shoulder, mascara streaked down both cheeks, heels she could barely stand in. She spun around and pressed her back against his truck like something was still coming. Nathan didn't know her name yet. He just knew the look, the kind that meant whoever was behind her was worse than a stranger in a dark parking lot. Headlights swept across the far fence, slow, searching. He didn't think. He pulled her down behind the truck and didn't breathe until the engine sound faded completely. When they stood back up, she looked at him the way people look at a locked door they've just found open. Relief and disbelief at the same time. He recognized her then. The face from a magazine cover in his daughter's cardiologist waiting room. The most powerful woman in biotech, Vivian Hale. She took his hands, both of them, oil-stained and calloused, and her voice broke on every word. "Come with me," she swallowed hard. "I need a husband." Nathan said nothing. "Because what do you say to that?" If you've ever wondered what happens when the most powerful woman in the room has no one left to call, stay with us. And if stories like this are your kind of thing, hit subscribe. We put out new ones every week, and you won't want to miss what comes next. Nathan Brooks was not a complicated man. He worked. He came home. He made sure Lila ate dinner and finished her homework and took her medication on time. That was the shape of his life, and he had made his peace with it. The garage where he worked, Riley's Auto, a 2-bay shop off Route 9 in a part of town where the streetlights flickered more than they worked, wasn't much. But it was steady, and steady was what Nathan needed. His boss didn't ask too many questions. His co-workers left him alone. He could get through a full 8 hours without anyone looking at him the way people sometimes looked at him in other places, like he needed to explain himself before he'd said a word. He'd been doing this for 4 years. Since Claire died. The accident hadn't been dramatic in the way tragedies were supposed to be. A faulty sensor in a medical monitoring device. A delayed alert. 37 minutes that should have been caught in time and weren't. The hospital had offered a settlement. Nathan had taken it because Lila was 5 years old and needed health insurance more than he needed to fight a system that had already made clear it didn't intend to lose. He didn't talk about it. He got up in the morning, made breakfast, drove Lila to school, and went to work. That was how he survived it. Lila was 9 now. She had Claire's eyes and Nathan's stubbornness, and a heart condition the doctors called mild, but that Nathan had never once thought of as mild. Mild meant manageable. It did not mean safe. Every 3 months, he sat in a waiting room at St. Clement's cardiology ward and stared at the ceiling while a doctor on the other side of a door told his daughter to breathe in and breathe out. He had done the math on what surgery would cost if it came to that. He had done the math more times than he could count. Lila knew. She was too smart not to. She didn't talk about it either. She had learned that from him, but she showed it in other ways. She left the good cuts of chicken for his plate. She drew pictures of their family with 3 figures, always 3, the third one sketched lighter than the rest, like she was trying to hold on to something that kept fading. She was the only reason he stayed. He didn't bring Vivian Hale back to his apartment. That much he had the sense to know would be a disaster. Instead, he walked her through the side door of the garage and sat her down on a folding chair in the back office while he locked the bay doors. She was shaking. Not from cold, he thought, but from adrenaline wearing off. He found a clean shop rag and handed it to her without a word. She looked at it for a moment like she wasn't sure what it was for, then pressed it against the cut on her forearm. "Talk," he said. "Fast." She talked. Her name, her company, he already knew those. What he didn't know was the rest of it. The way her father's will had been structured, the legal clause that tied emergency medical authority and biometric access to a legal spouse. She explained it quickly, like a woman accustomed to briefing people who didn't have time to care about context. Her half-brother Adrian had been moving against her for months. Tonight had been his opening move. A coordinated effort to isolate her, cut off her contacts, and buy enough time to have a falsified psychiatric evaluation filed with the state by morning. If that evaluation landed, she lost her legal standing. She lost the company. She lost the formula. What formula? Nathan asked. She told him about that too. A treatment compound for a rare pediatric cardiac condition. Years in development, currently in final phase trials. If Adrian transferred ownership to the foreign syndicate he'd been negotiating with, the licensing structure would change overnight. Production costs would be absorbed into a private pricing model. The drug would exist, but the families who needed it most would never be able to afford it. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. How rare? He asked. Rare enough that most hospitals don't stock a treatment. Common enough that there are thousands of children in this country right now with no options. She met his eyes. I don't know your daughter's specific diagnosis, but I've seen her cardiologist's address on a piece of mail in your truck. Dr. Okafor at St. Clement's. He's been part of our trial consultation group. Nathan felt something cold move through his chest. She hadn't looked him up. She'd just been paying attention. I need someone who can't be bought, Vivian said. Adrian has gotten to everyone in my circle. My lawyers, my security team, my assistant. Every person I trust professionally has either been compromised or is unreachable. She paused. You helped me tonight and you didn't ask for anything. You didn't even ask my name. I didn't need to. I know. She looked at her hands. That's why I'm asking you. He said no. Clearly, immediately, without hesitation. He said no because he had a daughter at home with a babysitter who charged by the hour, and a situation that was already complicated enough without adding a headline. He said no because he didn't know this woman, and everything about the night so far suggested that knowing her came with consequences he couldn't afford. Vivian didn't argue. She just looked at him. If Adrian completes this transfer, she said, the compound goes into private licensing within 18 months. Your daughter is 9. By the time she might need access to it, it will cost more than you'll make in 10 years. Nathan stared at the floor. I'm not saying that to threaten you, she added. I'm saying it because you deserve to know what the actual choice is. It was the word deserve that got him. Not need, not please. She said deserve, like she genuinely believed he was owed the truth. And something about that, the plainness of it, the lack of performance, cut through the wall he'd been building for the last 4 years. He looked up. 3 conditions, he said. She waited. You don't lie to my daughter about anything that could put her in danger. Second, you don't use money to manage me. Not now, not after, not ever. He let that sit for a second. And when this is over, that formula goes somewhere that families like mine can actually reach it. Vivian held his gaze. Yes, she said. All 3. No negotiation. Nathan nodded once. Then let's go file a marriage license, he said. And God help us both. The story broke before noon. Nathan found out the way most people did. A notification on his phone. A thumbnail of his own face standing next to Vivian Hale outside the county clerk's office at midnight, both of them soaked from the rain. The headline read, Hale Biotech CEO weds in secret. Who is the mystery husband? By the time he got to Vivian's house, there were 3 news vans parked outside the gate. Inside, it was quieter, but not by much. Vivian's legal team, the one member Adrian hadn't reached, was already on a call. 2 assistants moved through the hallway with tablets and earpieces. Someone had pressed a button and a machine had started moving, and Nathan stood in the middle of it with his jacket from yesterday still on and felt for the first time the full weight of what he'd agreed to. The board meeting was at 2 o'clock. Adrian was already there when they arrived. He stood at the head of the conference table like a man who had already won and was only waiting for the paperwork to catch up. He was younger than Nathan had expected. Mid-30s, sharp suit, the kind of handsome that came from money and knew it. He looked at Nathan once, slowly, the way you look at something someone has tracked in on their shoe. This is your husband, he said to Vivian. It wasn't a question, it was a performance, calibrated for the 6 board members sitting around the table. This is Nathan Brooks, Vivian said. My husband, yes. A mechanic. Adrian let the word fall on the table like a coin. From Riley's Auto on Route 9. He smiled at the board. You'll forgive us for being concerned about the circumstances. The questions that followed were dressed up in legal language, but Nathan understood what they were. They wanted to know if he was an opportunist, if he had approached Vivian, if she had been in a compromised state when the license was signed. One board member, a man in his 60s who had not once looked directly at Nathan, asked whether Vivian had sought any counsel before entering the arrangement. Nathan kept his hands flat on the table and said nothing unless directly addressed. He had learned a long time ago that the worst thing a black man could do in a room full of people who'd already decided what he was to give them the reaction they were waiting for. But it cost him. Every careful breath cost him something. After the meeting in the hallway outside, one of Adrian's associates made a comment that was meant to be quiet, but wasn't. Nathan stopped walking. He stood there for 3 full seconds with his jaw set and his hands at his sides. Vivian, 2 steps ahead of him, turned back. She looked at the associate, then at Nathan, and said nothing. Which was the problem? She filed it away like a logistical issue and kept moving. That night, she told Nathan what his schedule would look like for the next 72 hours, which events he needed